My name is Paul LaBelle. I'm the legislative chair for the Long Island Board of Realtors. I'm a broker. I'm an associate broker with another agency as well. I focus on commercial projects, and we also do a fair amount of residential. The good news is that the real estate industry on Long Island is very strong right now. Sales are brisk. Business is good. The not so good news is that the affordable houses are few and far between. I'm going to try to give you some stats and some figures. All of these stats and figures can be looked at if you go to our website, MLSILI longisland.com. MLSI longisland.com. That's our website. Everything is a wealth of information up there. So the median closed price in Suffolk County is about $360,000. That's a 6.2% increase over last October. Nassau is reporting median closed price of about $500,000, which is a 6.4% increase over a year ago. Based on that market, I would say we should describe affordable housing at the following ranges for Nassau and Suffolk County. Suffolk, we would consider anything affordable under $340,000. In Nassau, we would go with the number of $450,000. The wild card is the taxes in Nassau and Suffolk County. I don't have to tell anybody in this room we're the highest, pretty much the highest in the country, side of New Jersey and California. There's a lot of people out there, affordable housing. You factor into the taxes, and their tax payment is more than their mortgage payment. And the problem is, I'm trying to get rid of that buzzing noise over there. It might be the speaker. The problem is that your mortgage is a 20, 30-year commitment. Your taxes are forever. Taxes go up every year, so it makes it difficult for an exit strategy for the elderly, for people ready to retire. It makes it very difficult for the young people to come in and get into the market in Nassau and Suffolk County. One of the things that's very, very weighing very heavily on our minds right now is the new tax act that's they're fighting for and probably going to vote on this afternoon, I guess, if they haven't voted on it yet. Is that better? Is that doing it? Okay. Great. Okay. Listen, we're all for tax reform. I think everybody in this room probably agreed that we do need some tax reform in this country. One of the things that's very important here on Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk County especially, is tax reform, is the mortgage interest deduction. That's why a lot of young people buy houses. That's why a lot of people move into different homes, because they can afford it because of the interest deduction that they've been so lucky to enjoy over the years. And the other thing is the state and local taxes, to be able to deduct your property taxes. We are on the verge, LIBOR has taken a position, we're fighting it strongly, we're pumping a lot of money into the opposition, along with the State Board of Realtors and the National Board of Realtors. So this is something that's very important, and that's going to directly affect the affordable housing issue as we face here on Long Island. In Suffolk County, we pulled some numbers up yesterday. There's about 1,930 homes for sale that we would consider affordable. And out of that 1,930, the median price range is $255,000. So that That could be a zombie house. It could be a house in foreclosure. It could be a house that needs extensive renovations. All right. So when you take that into consideration, those numbers will probably, you spend the money that's necessary to bring that house up to living standard par conditions. You're going to be back up to that $340,000 range in Suffolk. In Nassau, there's only 1,184 properties under that price, around the $370,000 median value. Again, median values, affordable housing, factor in your property taxes. All right? Search on our website, mlsli.com. You can bring up all these facts. I have pages and pages of very valuable information, which would be good. We see the prices are trending up right now. They're trickling up at a pretty good pace, 2.5%. And that's strictly because of the shortage of inventory. That doesn't help the affordable housing issue on Long Island right now. So, we do like to see, these transit-orientated projects. They're building, like the one they built in Wyandanch, they're building in Ronkonkoma, the Ronkonkoma hub now, the one they built in Patchogue. I think that directly affects the millennials right now. Everybody wants to be able to get to their jobs in Manhattan. They like the fact that they're close to the train. They may not have to own a vehicle. They can be close to a downtown for their dinners and their dry cleaner and their local establishments that they like to hang out in. And kids today, they Uber it, and they like to ride their bikes. And if they need a car, they're probably going to rent one from Enterprise for the weekend. So they like the transit-orientated projects, and I think we need more of those in Nassau and Suffolk for sure. I guess our sales, if we can get more inventory, obviously prices will lower. We're not sure how that's going to play out with the new tax, so we're going to have to see how that plays out. But in Suffolk County, this year we have 6,790 sales compared to 8,003 last October, so we're down about 15%. Nassau, 4,658 this October versus 5,171, so down about 10% in Nassau. We have an affordability index, and if you go on our website, you can follow it. We like to keep it at 100, if not a little bit over that, which is good because we can supply housing for the people that need it. And anything below that is not good. Rising prices, the index fails because people are paying top dollar. It's really not good for affordable housing. People pay more. We get into bidding wars right now. People list a house for $350,000 and they go for $389,000. Because people can't find a house in an area they want to live in. So I think we're doing well. I think we all have to keep in mind that we need more multifamily housing. We need more transit housing. And, we're encouraged for LIBOR and the Board of Realtors, and I think all the realtors, there's 25,000 realtors in Nassau, Suffolk, and Queens. And, we're all pretty much encouraged that business is good. We are watching the Tax Act. This is going to be very important. It could impose probably a 10% drop in values, which I guess normally in the market would show that a 10% drop in value would make houses more affordable. But with the inventory being low, I don't know that that's going to make them more affordable because I think it may drive prices back up because you can't get a house. All right. So with that, I'd like to pass it along to.
Thank you, Paul. Our next speaker is Peter Flory, who is with DNF Development. Peter has actually done many tax credit deals, both here in Long Island as well as in the city. We did a project with Peter just recently. It's opened up in Melville. It's a limited co-op limited equity co-op, which was kind of unique. But Peter will talk about some of the developments they do and the affordable units that he has.
Thank you, Joe. It's a great honor, really, for me to be here amongst my colleagues, fellow developers and creators of affordable housing. Affordable housing, I think, if you ask most people in Long Island, is there a need for affordable housing? Most would say absolutely 100%. And most would also say, unfortunately, that while we are very supportive of additional affordable housing, it's just not near me, and that's what we encounter day in and day out, and that's what we have to work our way through. That is starting to change, though, and the perceptions, largely because of the need, but also because of the work that we have done and my colleagues have done to demonstrate that this housing that we are creating that is truly affordable can also be beautifully designed, and it can be something that we can all be really proud of. There were some questions, for those of you who attended the breakfast this morning, there were a number of questions that were posed, one of which was by Joy Brown, and she asked, and I'd like to amend that question just a little bit. She asked, how many that were attending the breakfast had kids that had left Long Island, and I would amend that by asking how many, not if you don't have kids or yourself, if you've left Long Island, how many of us have left Long Island, and then how many of us have come back? And what was interesting was that, a lot of folks raised their hands when she asked about who left. Not so many raised their hands when she asked how many of them came back. So that was very telling. There were two other questions that were posed, and it was interesting. Of all the questions that were posed today, they were all about housing and all about affordable housing. There were two other questions that were posed, one of which was by a very intelligent person who is with us here today, and that was, how do we create more affordable housing on Long Island? And the second question was, how do we create more diversity, which is, part and parcel of the creation of affordability. And one of the things that we are really proud of at DNF is that we've been able to create affordable housing, not in the traditional areas where you see a lot of affordable housing, but in more affluent communities that have been very traditionally resistant to the creation of affordable housing. So what I'd like to do just very quickly is run through a couple of the projects that we have recently completed, and then also show you also quickly something that we're working on right now. And when we talk about affordability, we're talking about affordable to households that are at or below in between 60 to 80% of the area median, and that it translates into between about on the low side about 35,000, 40,000, on up to about 80,000. Would you agree with that roughly? That's sort of a rough parameter. Rents that will start, below $1,000 and work their way on up to $1,800 a month. So that's the level of affordability that we're talking about in these projects. First project that I'm showing here is in the Village of Valley Stream. It was completed earlier this year. It's 39 units, 19 one-bedrooms and 22 bedrooms. It happens to be located, this is a classic transit-oriented development. It is located right at the Gibson Boulevard train station in Valley Stream. The train platform is literally right behind this building. And we built it not only as an affordable project, but we also have a set aside for folks who have developmental disabilities. So we worked with the Long Island Center for Independent Living. So there are 15% of the units that have been set aside for those folks with those disabilities. But I have to tell you that it took about 2 days to get all the qualified applications to rent this up. Just a quick backstory to this project. When we bought the land, and by the way, had been blighted property, and that's the other thing. I mean, a lot of these projects are built, in formerly blighted areas. We bought the property; it was already approved for 39 units. One of the rare occasions where we were able to find property that was already approved. And we went to the village and we told them about our wonderful plan to create affordable housing. They said, "Great, wonderful, we love it." And about 2 weeks later, we found out that they wanted to condemn the property. So, and it was largely due to the fact that perhaps they weren't so thrilled about what we wanted to do. In any event, we prevailed, we got it done, we got them to see that this really was probably a pretty good idea. And we moved forward, it was financed with tax credits, and there it is. The next project that I want to show you is in Melville, in the town of Huntington. This is a project, this is a piece of land that we built on that had sat vacant. Actually, there was an attempt to get housing on the site for 15 years. Not by us, we took it over again later on, but it was a very, very long and drawn out process. We were fortunate, we worked with a lot of wonderful people to get this done. I do have to also credit the town of Huntington, who finally stepped up and said, "Okay, we'll do this." They did it, albeit reluctantly. This is a 117 unit project called Highland Green. It's when it was originally approved, it was only approved for 1 bedrooms, and this is a multi-family project. And of course, we disagreed with that, as did many others, including the NAACP. And after a long and drawn-out battle, we were able to get 72 1-bedrooms, 39 2-bedrooms, and 6 3-bedrooms into this project. It was funded also with credits and bonds. There's a little twist to this story, which is that it was not a traditional rental. It is built, and it was also completed earlier this year, was built as what is called a limited equity co-op. And I'm not going to go into great detail on that because we require several weeks of explanation. But suffice it to say that the residents here are owners and shareholders in their units. They are not renters. There is no landlord here, and they will not walk away from this with a profit, however, but they will benefit by any increase in value or amortization of the underlying financing. They benefit as opposed to and any residual or surplus funds that come into the project become the project's funds, not a landlord. So it was a real win in a lot of respects. So the last project that I want to show you is one that is just been approved in the town of Islip. It's in the hamlet of Bayshore, and it's 75 senior units, and we are doing that in conjunction with the LGBT network. They're going to have an 8,000 square foot community center on the ground floor of this building, and there will be 75, as I mentioned, 75 units in this project. It was just approved. We're in the process now of looking to get our funding. We're keeping our fingers crossed. But there are more. What we're finding is that, particularly in downtown areas, there is a growing acceptance of this type of development, and that is a good thing. What we're also seeing, particularly now in Nassau County, is that the political climate is definitely changing. We've seen major changes now in Nassau County as well as in the town of Hempstead, and even in Oyster Bay. There is a growing acceptance and buy-in to transit-oriented development, to affordable housing, and we're looking forward to seeing more. And I'm going to shut up now and pass it on to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. The nice thing, sometimes you get to see what actually is being built. And that's something that's really important, because a lot of times the perception out there is that if you're doing affordable housing, it doesn't have quality. But you're going to see with Peter's projects and also our next speaker that there is a lot of quality in those units. And our next speaker is Ralph Pisano. Ralph is the Executive Director of Concern for Independent Living. Concern is the largest provider of supportive housing on Long Island and one of the largest in New York State. Known around for a number of years now, and their developments are excellent. I was going to show you and talk about a couple of things that they've done that really, you should, if you have an opportunity, try and get out and take a look at them. Ralph?
I'm not going to stand with this. It does come out great, thanks. So, well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Peter. Okay, sit back down. So just a little bit about Concern. So we were founded in 1972. Hey, can everybody hear me if I just talk like this? Good. Peter and I have danced before. So we were founded in 1972. We started developing supportive housing for people with psychiatric disabilities. Over the years, okay. How's that now? Okay. So, and we have 350 employees. We manage about 270 different sites. Just push the page down. Okay, try it again. So one of the things we started doing on Long Island was taking over adult homes for those of you who remember, the number of adult homes that were overcrowded, they were poorly built, they were an eyesore in the community. You can go. So what we did here was, this is in Islip, West Sayville. We downsized it to 50 studio units. Keep going. Keep going. A second adult home owner called us and asked if we wanted to do that. You can keep going. So one of the things we try to do is have attractive indoor spaces. Keep going. This is the former Henry Perkins adult home in Riverhead that we took over. They had 120 people here. We reduced it to 50 studio apartments. And I think started the downtown revitalization of Riverhead. Third adult home operator called us and asked us if we were interested in buying his place, and we said yes. And we looked at this place and said it's really an ugly institutional building and something we try to get away from. And we asked him what we could do with it. He said, let's knock it down. And this is what we built. Keep going. And then a piece of property became available in Amityville. This was a former military base. They had Nike missiles at this site, and there was a competition to come up with a plan to develop this. We decided, since it was military, why not have housing for homeless veterans? So 60 homeless veterans and their families now live at this site. Lots of complications. I think one of the themes of this workshop is how do we do more of affordable housing? And one of the things we need to recognize is how difficult it is to do this here on Long Island. And what's really needed is a lot of political support to help push things through. One of the reasons why we don't get our fair share of the affordable housing dollars that are available in New York State is because it takes us so long to develop. So when we first got a tax credit award for this site, the state told us, Governor Cuomo said, if you don't break ground in 9 months, we're going to take it back and give it to somebody else who can do it quicker. And so we initially were celebrating that we'd gotten this grant, and then people told me, well, you need a zoning change, and you need site plan approval, and you need HUD approval, and the Department of Defense has to do it. If you do it in 2 years, you're really good. And Senator Schumer came out and had the town supervisor there, Rich Schaefer, had the county executive there, talked about his friend who was the HUD secretary, Sean Donovan, who he claimed he appointed. I think the president really did it, but he recommended him. And then the defense secretary, he was roommates with Leon Panetta. And he said, we're going to do this, we're going to break ground in 9 months. And we did, and we eventually opened it up. Second veterans project that we did is in Ronkonkoma, and this is a split between homeless veterans and affordable units. A blighted nursing home, adult home that was there, we knocked that down. One of our residents has become good at taking aerial photography, so he took these pictures. So people that live in this community said, you know, it was just horrible. There was, you know, broken down building, there was crime, there was drugs, and now it's a beautiful community. This is vacant land in Middle Island, and I want to point out that Connie Keppert is here, councilwoman at the time for this area. And this was an area, keep going. So this is an area where the community wanted this land developed for a long time. Gail Bailey is here, who is the head of the Civic Association there, and she said there were 25 different applications to develop this site over the years. And it was complicated because there needed to be a sewage treatment plant that could also feed it. This is the only piece of land that could have the sewage treatment plant that would then service other parcels around it. And that sewage treatment plant cost $4 million. And no one else has bought into it yet. So, but we were able to do it with that. This was in bankruptcy court. There was a lawsuit questioning the zoning. There was an issue with tiger salamanders. It was, other than that, it was a pretty easy project to develop. $50 million project. And we're really happy with the way it turned out. It's 123 units, 50 are supportive. That's where the people receive some services. The other 73 are affordable. Question came up a lot today. What is affordable? So I'm going to give you some numbers. You can get a 1-bedroom for $900, a 2-bedroom for about $1,200, and a 3-bedroom for a little bit more than that. So we know that that's affordable. We try to make the projects as affordable as we can. We're a not-for-profit organization, and our mission is to help those most in need. And one of the things that's been really rewarding about the affordable units is, as an agency that has worked mostly with disabilities in the past, we've come to really appreciate the importance of affordable housing. Some of the people that move into the affordable units are right on the edge. They're 1 or 2 paychecks away from needing to go into a shelter. Many of the families and the kids are not living in areas where they can go to a good school. They don't have a home environment where they can study and do the things that they'll need to be successful. And it's so gratifying to see those kids move in to here. So the concerned staff are in the second row. Robin Smith is the director of this facility, and so one of the things we had to do was, the construction was late, and we had to fill up an entire building in like 2.5 months. And the entire complex, this is on 38 acres of land. Okay. So as you can see, it's hard to put projects like this together, a lot of different funding sources. Keep going. And we'll end up with this project. This is a project in Hempstead that we wanted to develop. It's a block away from the train station. It's a vacant parking lot now. And we raised $50 million. The plans are completed. They're in the building. Department of Arts is laughing because they have a project across the street from us. So there were elections in March. Anybody here from the village of Hempstead? Hey, I can talk freely. So maybe I can't. Essentially, this was a plan, Renaissance Downtown. I saw Ryan here before. Came up with a plan to revitalize this whole community. We're the first project that's really ready to break ground. And there was a mayoral election in March, and the new mayor, who was not supposed to win, is questioning whether there should be any pilots in the community. And so we have everything except a pilot. We could close and start to build this tomorrow, but we don't have that level. So that's where the politics come in, and needing the political support. And just to end on some of the things that I think that we need to do here on Long Island to foster more development. First, I'd like to say that conferences like this are really important. To get those elected officials sitting up there at the dais and be recognized for what they're doing in their community, because they get flack everywhere else. And when they have meetings, somebody mentioned this morning that there's always two people who are really loud and oppositional, and they hear that. They need to hear from us that this is what we want, and we need to recognize them. On Long Island, we need to figure out how to do this quicker. It's gotten, so we lose. Hi. So that's Lou Jekyll, the architect for this site. He's trying to draw the attention to it. I'm not sure how we do it quicker. So when the state is giving out money, what they basically look at is how quickly can this housing go up. And on Long Island, it often takes 4 or 5 years, and that's just not good enough. Not good enough. They're not going to give us the money to do it. So we have to come together and figure out how we can cram 3 or 4 years of approvals, of design, of everything into 1.5 and 2 years. And some of us have done that, and we need to do it more. We need to come together. I was part of a very good training called the Rapid Results Institute. They go around the world and they train people on how to do things better and quicker. And it's really looking at every step of the process and saying, okay, why does this step take 6 months? Why can't it take 2? And why can't we do something else at the same time? And pressuring our public officials to move things along. We can do it. When there's a will, we can really do it, and I think we need to start doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. As you can see, developed quite a few great developments there. Our next speaker has been on Long Island for many years. Runs one of the largest construction companies on Long Island and has tremendous insights into housing and development here on Long Island. His name is Jack Kugler, and I'm proud to say that he's with us today. Jack?
Good morning, everybody. I've seen some fantastic projects that we showed. What you didn't really hear, and I'm not known for my filter and I'm not known for my diplomacy, but what you didn't really hear is the aggravation, the time wasted, the money wasted, and the projects that never happened to get those few beautiful projects accomplished. We, unfortunately, on Long Island, are inhabited by cave dwellers. Citizens against virtually everything. The Kolka Group and its related construction companies have been involved in creative construction, creative planning since 1974. Early on in our history, a young man approached us and he said, in spite of you suing my father, I would like to build a project in the town of Brookhaven. I'm in charge of a nonprofit, and we have all kinds of problems, not from the town particularly, but from the citizenry and the bureaucracy that surrounds the project. And I met with the young man, and he had said that he had selected us because he felt that our reputation for getting things done worked well with him. And at that time, I was suing his father on utility matters, and his father and I really didn't get along. And that young man was Andrew Cuomo. And we built housing for the homeless, the health project out in Brookhaven. And this was at a time that Andrew had no desire to go into politics. And it was also at a time where he felt that the only way he'd get this project done is he go to his father and get it done under a UDAC grant so that all of the local governmental organizations would have no say in the construction of this project. And shortly thereafter, 7, 8 months, the project got approved instantaneously, of course. It got built instantaneously. It got designed instantaneously. And 8 months later, it was on board. And were there things that happened that were problems? Yes, there were. There was an explosion in the boiler 2 days before we were ready to turn the project over. Andrew and I met and said, how are we going to solve this problem? We're going to solve it. The problem on Long Island is if you really want affordable housing, and building the projects, the beautiful projects that you saw on the screen, much to the credit of the developers and the not-for-profits that put these projects together, is the cost of the project, not only as a result of taxes, but the cost of the project and time lost to get the approvals, and time lost to put together a suitable design that meets everybody's desires is outrageous. If you want to have affordable housing, true affordable housing on Long Island, there are two buzz phrases that I suggest you keep in mind. One, multi-use zoning. And two, infrastructure. Obviously, if you've listened to Andrew at the LIA or his numerous meetings he's come out to the island, he stressed infrastructure. He stressed buses, trains, etc. we must stress multi-use zoning. We actually have unofficial multi-use zoning on Long Island. It's called living in your parents' basement. And whether you like it or not, that unfortunately is a solution to many of the problems that we are discussing. I'll give you an example, and I won't mention the town. I have a lot of respect for the developer. I won't mention the lawyer because he blew the deal. But somebody came to a town in Suffolk County and bought, or was about to buy, a parcel of land from a school district where the administrative offices of the school district are located. And according to the head planner of that town, it was the ideal project to bring up to the town. It was across the street from the Long Island Railroad Station. It was right in downtown blank town. And it was a gorgeous project from a developer that came from another part of the country, who I notice now is becoming active on Long Island. He's a sponsor at this seminar program. And what happened to that perfect project? It met the perfect storm. The community was against the project. Why was the community against the project? Not because they were worried about the wrong type of people moving into the project. Not because they were unhappy with the concept of the design. What were they unhappy about? There were some empty soccer fields next to the administrative buildings of the school district. So they decided to oppose the project because they didn't want their children to lose a free soccer field. Hell, man, if I was on that project and if I had the attorney working for me, I would have built them soccer fields anywhere they wanted. Instead, the attorney got into a fight with the homeowners. He called them racist. They called them detriment to their way of life. And the project never came out. Sounds ridiculous? True. I want you to know that the town fathers in that town could easily, you could write a book about attempting to get the approval of this project, but we call it, amongst the people at this table, at least I do, profiles in cowardice. When you go to a hearing, first thing you do is you count the number of people at the hearing, and then you pray how many of those people are about to oppose you. And when you find out they're opposing some homeowner because he wants to put a chimney too close to his property line, then you breathe and feel sorry for the homeowner and pray that your project gets approved. So on a general basis, if you really want to accomplish affordable housing, you have to look at the two groups that need it most. Workforce housing, another buzzword, and millennial housing. My son is 28 years old. He's looking for a place in Huntington. His girlfriend and him have 2 adopted dogs, large dogs. They're not going to find it in a regular apartment complex. And all he runs into are, and he can afford more than the average millennial because he's working very hard. All he runs into is overpriced homes. You need to have multifamily housing. I have a house in Florida, in Boca Raton, mouth of the rat, that's what it means in Spanish, ironic. And what is the development I live in, it's got make-believe, security, people with big hats and guns. I don't know if they shoot or they don't shoot. But what does that community consist of? There are $15 million homes, and there are $150,000 quadruplex, multifamily use. Quadruplex meaning 4 apartments to a building. Across the street is affordable rental units that are rented by the people that work in serving that community. On the other corner is the old IBM industrial tract that is now turned to a major industrial park. So what do we have in this, quote, fancy community? You have mixed-use zoning, from comparatively low-income apartments to homes in the community itself that started at maybe 175, 200,000, to homes that go all the way to, I don't know, 15 to 20 million dollars. Lo and behold, they actually sit in the same dining areas, in the same restaurants. They talk to each other. They come from all parts of the country. They have all different ethnicities. And everybody survives. We're not worried about who's going to live next door to us. We're not worried about whether we can do this. So in order to listen to the suggested buzzwords or buzz phrases, multi-use zoning and infrastructure, that's how we're going to make money. We're going to save money, and people are going to have suitable housing. Multi-use zoning, we've all heard, and Eric Alexander deserves a lot of credit, we've all heard about downtown mixed-use zoning. We're working on a project right now in unincorporated Patchogue. We're basically going to do what the village of Patchogue did with Tritech Development. We're going to do that on the east side, outside of the village. And we're going to have multifamily housing. We're going to have a catering facility. We're going to have a conference center. We're going to have commercial use, restaurants, entertainment centers. And when I first went to the town fathers and the village and the town planner, he was very sympathetic. We had done some major projects in that town, and they were happy because anytime we promised them something, we did it. And he looked at the code and he said, holy mackerel, we have nothing in the code that allows you to do this. Absolutely nothing. Because nobody had the creativity to attempt to do it. And we should learn from the successful projects of what Tritech, Paul Pontieri, the village of Patchogue did, and we should duplicate that and replicate that. And that's what we're doing. So you need, I wonder if I can make a plane out of this. You need to do that. You need to be creative. And you need to have brave profiles, encourage local politicos that will work with you to get the project done. That's the simple answer. I see a lot of some young people here. Have you found it easy? I'm going to ask you, have you found it easy to find housing on Long Island that's affordable to you?
I don't know if the gentleman ends with the talk or not, because I have maybe a help.
So everybody's got that problem. Everybody looks down and was worried about the kids, the millennials can't get the housing. I hear it from my son, I hear it from his friends. And all of them
Like a door. I'm looking at
provide fixer-uppers and trying to make it happen. Of course, when you're young, the funding sources are limited to you unless you go to mom and pop bank. But that's a problem. Same thing with minorities. I work with a number of minority groups. They can't find suitable housing in the so-called minority-safe areas. And that's totally unacceptable. I got to cut it soon, so therefore, we got to start the next project. But I look forward to doing it into action today, all of you. And by the way, I didn't write a speech, I just dropped some words down and talked from the heart, and that's where we're all coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We can always count on you for great insights. Our next speaker is with Conniff Realty. Conniff is a large developer of affordable housing here on Long Island. We don't have actually Alan Handelman here. We have Arthur Crower. And Arthur is going to kind of wrap up and tell us, get some overthoughts on the panel.
Great, thanks guys. So I am, by the way, the story of, if anybody raised their hand this morning, I probably would have been the only one. So I graduated from Ward Melville High School, Three Village School District, Stony Brook in 1990. And I looked at my options, and my options were going to school somewhere in New York State, moving into my parents' house, trying to find a job, and like my sister who lived with relatives until her early 30s, or my brother who lived with relatives till his early 40s, I really didn't like those options. So to Ohio, I went, I came, I saw, I stayed. 26 years later, I come back to Long Island to develop in the community that I was born and raised in. And the most staggering thing for me is that I go to various communities, I meet with their mayors, their directors of community development, and every one of those individuals, to a person, the first thing they say to me is, "Why did you come back? Nobody comes back." I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you the mayor? Aren't you the ambassadors to these towns that nobody comes back? So, and the reason is there's no there. And so I want to talk about basically, I want to summarize what we've talked about here into 5 things. Because 5 things really summarize what we do. In order to have a project, for any of us, 5 things. You don't have these 5 things, you don't have a project. First, zoning. What you want to build isn't zoned there, you've got a real problem. And on Long Island, try to get a project rezoned. You probably have an easier time invading the Battle of Normandy was probably easier. Secondly, you need site control. And site control is a real challenge. Not only are we talking about elevated prices for land, which is prohibitive to making these projects work, but you've got to find willing sellers and willing communities that would make that land worth. I mean, I've had more legislators tell me, you paid $1.6 million for an acre of real estate? Yeah, and I thought it was a bargain at twice the price. And they're shocked that these land values and that they're legislating over our development in these areas. The third thing, and this is obviously critical, is, as my boss would say, infrastructure. It's the utilities, stupid. If you don't have the ability to get the access to your site for water, for sewer, for electrical, for gas, forget about it. You don't have a project. And it's the amount of areas on Long Island that don't have sewer is a huge impediment to successful development on Long Island. It's a major headache. A $4 million pump station for 117, 123 units. I mean, that's a staggering amount of money for that development. And when we had that at Wynn Coram, we redeveloped a blighted former movie theater, and $6 million pump station. That costs continue to go up because the barriers to that are crazy. So you have site control, you have zoning, you have infrastructure. You need money, and again, New York State allocated $2.5 billion over 5 years. I want to say $2.5 billion over 5 years for the development of affordable housing in New York State. That commitment to compare to any other state in the union is comical. As an example, a project we're developing across the street from Ralph in the village of Hempstead, has right now $34 million in gap financing from the state of New York. $34 million in gap financing would be more than the entire gap financing budget for the state of Ohio. Okay, one project. And that's one of many throughout the state that are receiving these benefits. So clearly there is money there, and yet we're not developing at the pace that other areas of the state are developing. And we pretty much have a 100% success rate in terms of applications applied for and awarded on Long Island. Am I correct? Anybody really have a problem getting their projects awarded? They don't. So the fourth thing is money, and we have it, and yet we still can't develop at that pace, which is really another major challenge. And the other challenge in most areas of the country is market. You have to have the people. I mean, in any other state, you're doing a market study to figure out exactly how many units you can build to be able to make your project work. On Long Island, a market study is pretty much, it's just something we collect because we have to put it in the application. If you find land on Long Island to build, you're going to fill it up. I mean, it's just that simple. You may have to figure out whether it's ones, twos, and threes. So we have money, we have market, we have land. What is, as these folks have described, we are encountering barriers to all 5 of these things in order to make our project successful, even though we have all the assets in place. So education, when we talk about strategies to success, education is the only thing. Education of the communities in which we wish to work, education of our politicians that we need to help us move our projects forward, education at the state that we can actually do these projects and do them efficiently and effectively. And until those things happen, it's going to continue to be an incredibly slow slog to get these projects developed, even though the need is obviously evident. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur, and thank you to the panel. I know lunch is about to start in a few minutes, but we do have time for questions real quick. Some questions?
I just want to thank the panel very much for the informative presentation today. On the conversation of affordable, we talked about the definition of affordable. However, let's also remember there are thousands of people with Section 8 and other types of vouchers that when you use the word affordable, affordable housing is not affordable. So there's a population there. The other thing, 2 things is one, not in your backyard, Jack. You brought it up. We have to change that to yes in our backyard through the education. But the one thing we haven't talked about is our height. You know, I counted here, and I just saw a beautiful project at only 5 stories, 4 plus, 1 plus 4. That's something that I think that has to become part of that education. I think it's our young people, it's the millennials that have to drive that change in paradigm, where Long Islanders are accustomed to 2 stories, 3 is tall, 5 is absolutely unacceptable. But you know what? We're a growing population.
You know, what we didn't talk about in great detail, and Jack, first of all, I really appreciated what you had to say, but we talked about millennials. I mean, ultimately, the other reason that I left Long Island is that I looked around and said, is there a community here that has anything for me? I gotta drive 20 minutes to go to the grocery store, and it's 3/4 of a mile away. I gotta drive 20 minutes to a movie theater. There's no there. And so when I moved back to Long Island, there were basically 5 communities that I could look at. Huntington, Port Jeff, Patchogue, obviously, Babylon, the village of Babylon, where we ended up with communities that actually had dense cores where they were trying to create some kind of critical mass of a downtown. And the problem was, Huntington, you can't get there from here. It's difficult to get to. Port Jefferson, there's no there. It's difficult to get to. We really have an issue with the fact that we don't have 4 downtowns with elevations that can create the density that allows us to maintain these critical communities that people want. They want their communities to remain the same. The only way that happens with our increasing population is if we create denser cores, 4, 5, 6 stories. And even the progressive communities, when you start getting to 4 stories, they begin to start to shiver. So height is a critical, being able to zone appropriately, to effectively create land use strategies that maximize the assets that we have and create attractive assets that will bring people to Long Island, or more importantly, keep people staying on Long Island, is another issue that we're not addressing at a rapid enough pace. We can't keep on saying Patchogue's the only place.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I would also add, this is where the transit-oriented development, and where we see the growing buy-in, the growing acceptance of that. I think that's going to be where we're going to start to see more of, greater density. Right now, in Long Island, there are very few towns, very few villages that have zoning on their books that contemplates anything more than about 6 units per acre. I mean, and so that means when we come into these municipalities, we have to tell them, hey guys, it's just not going to happen unless we can get, 20 units an acre. And so we're going to, in many of these situations, we have to create the zoning. Now, there are a few municipalities that have done this, but they're very few. It is growing, and it is growing in the downtown areas. So that's an area I think we got to look at. I'd also just add one additional item to your fantastic list of 5, and that is payment in lieu of taxes, the pilots. That is a critical component that is, just absolutely essential to our successful development of affordable housing. And it is also one of those pieces that is extremely difficult and is one of the things that's holding things up in the village of Hempstead right now. And it is something that, while we're getting increasing buy-in on the concept of affordable housing, is going to be a growing challenge, with towns facing the 2% cap and it's managing their funds. When we go to them, we say, not only do we want to put affordable housing in your community, we want you to give us tax break. Not too happy about that. So that's an area that we have to continue to battle on. On an optimistic note, though, that's not a panacea, but on an optimistic note, we are seeing growing acceptance of this type of housing. So, we as developers, we're always optimistic, right? Even though we complain a lot. Okay, thank you.
I agree with you. I think there is a change in the wind. But we as a group have to work to get other people involved to implement that change. I was involved in the construction of the largest industrial park east of the Mississippi, the Hop Park Industrial Park. People come to us now and want to do millennial and workforce housing right in the industrial park. Go to the town, the planner is in favor of it. The pound fathers, they don't know yet. But this is what you need to do. I see it changes. I see changes in Brookhaven. I see changes in Iceland. I'm sure there are going to be changes in the town of Hempstead and the village of Hempstead. They would not approve the Nassau Coliseum project and keep the islanders on Long Island because the political infrastructure that was in power was afraid that young millennials would come out and vote for the opposition party because they're not safe votes. And shock of all shocks, they lost the election with the safe votes. So I think it's important. Any other questions?
Yes. So I just want to, thanks. I just want to say something really quickly. My name's Crystal. I work for a Nassau County legislator, full disclosure. You guys can hear me, right? All right.
Come on up. Come on.
Hi, my name's Crystal, and full disclosure, I'm on here. How are you? See a few people here, a few familiar faces that I do know. I'm here representing my boss, Legislator Drucker, who was here earlier today, but we all had a choice of which panels we could attend today. I wanted to choose this one. The reason I came to this one is because, again, you guys could all look this up. My salary is $50,000. I went to private schools my entire life, and I have a mother who's a nurse and a stepfather who's a doctor. doctor. They do not have money to give me, just because they make money and they've lived well and successfully. They don't necessarily have money, I see heads nodding already, to give me a down payment. And truth be told, why should they? They worked hard, I'm working hard. I work 7 days a week. I really do, and I'm not complaining. I do it because I like what I do. And I'm dating someone, his name is Seth. He works for another legislator, and that legislator is Bill Lindsay in Suffolk. In Suffolk County, you have a requirement that you have to, if you work for their government, live in their county. Nassau doesn't have that requirement. I have no idea why or whether that's going to change or whether it should change. I don't really want to speak on that. But we've been dating for about 2 years now, and we are considering moving in together. I'm 32, he's 40. I think it's high time we make some strides towards the future. So we're considering looking for apartments. We have a combined income of $100,000, and there's nothing we can do with it. Absolutely nothing. His best friends live across the street from him, from a house that's going on a short sale. That house in Patchogue is going on a short sale for $180,000. I'm not ready for a house. I have no time. I have a candidate. I have an elected official. I'm not mowing a lawn. I don't have time for a home. I'd like an apartment. All I want is a simple, clean, safe apartment. We all talk about walkable downtowns, and that's great. I would love that because, as you had mentioned, driving 20 minutes to go somewhere that's only a mile away because of traffic and stoplights and what have you is ridiculous. It's annoying. And those are things we need to build up. I, at this point, would be willing to live somewhere affordable that does not offer those things. I really would be, because the situation's crazy. So my take-home pay every 2 weeks, just to put this into perspective, again, this is all public record, $13.74 every 2 weeks. I pay $386 for my car payment every month, $318 for car insurance, $200 for my cell phone for me and for my parents. I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to. But it's just really frustrating. I can't find a place to live. So he lives all the way in East Setauket, and I live in Elmont. We don't see each other. We don't see each other, and I work in government, and I'm listening to what everybody has to say. And there's one thing I want to leave you guys with. We had issues with the pilot program in our community. Now, Legislator Drucker represents the area that we're in right now, which is part of why I wanted to be here today. So the pilot program, there needs to be a change, and he's going to work with partners on the state level, but he's not the only one, and others need to do this. We had an issue with a pilot, not for a housing development, but for a senior center. I forget what it was called, but it was through a company called Benchmark. People got very upset about the pilot because we spoke about education of communities. The communities don't receive education. Do you know why that is? There's a state law that requires that notification is made to 3 entities. The CEOs, if you will, of each tax jurisdiction. Who do you pay taxes to? You pay school taxes, town taxes, and county taxes. Who is the CEO of the county? Technically, the county executive, right? So your county legislator isn't going to know about it. The person who represents you in Woodbury, in Plainview, in Syosset doesn't know about it. We're in the same building. He's upstairs from my office almost directly. We don't get a notification because the law doesn't require it, and no one can send an email or a notice downstairs. So that's one thing we encounter. So we don't find out about it. We find out when constituents hear about it in other ways, and they call me yelling, "Why didn't your office tell us?" No one told us. So we need to have an education on the state level where that law is changed to require that every single government official, every single elected official receives notification. Once we receive that notification, we should also be. Okay. Well, just keep that in mind when we talk about pilots. And let's eat.
I have no question.